Welcome to Crime Stories of Pakistan with your host, Shehan Naz. If you haven't heard part one of this case, I recommend listening to it first. A big thank you to Ibrar for suggesting this heartbreaking case. Sara was a beautiful little girl, somewhat small for her age. She was full of personality. She adored her baby brother and cared for him lovingly. Her mother, Olga, said that Sara was always smiling and had her own unique character. A teaching assistant at her primary school said that Sara was a bubbly, confident, chatty, and an engaging child. She would sometimes approach her teacher and do it on, or sing, or put on a show. She was always happy in school, and you always knew when she was in the class. She just had a spark. She was a little feisty, and if she had an opinion, she would want to voice it and wasn't afraid to answer back. But then, on August 10th, 2023, on a quiet morning in Walking Surrey, a call comes in from Pakistan.
Hello? Yes, hello? Is everything okay? Hello, but nothing is okay. Can you write on my address, please? I don't understand what you're saying. Can you write down my address? Okay, what's your postcode? Tango, Quebec? Okay, what's happened? What number? Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath and tell me what's happened. I cannot. I physically, but it's my daughter and she died. I left the phone with a panic. God, she's alive. I need you to take a breath because I cannot understand what you're saying. Okay, your daughter has died. I killed my daughter. I killed my daughter. Okay. Hello. Okay. Don't worry. Nobody's at home. Hello. Hello. I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm still here. You can go one there and no. I left my front door keys under the front mat. Okay. So, my daughter is dead. I can left her. Who's killed your daughter? It's me. Okay. Father. How? I think she was naughty after the teacher died. I'm going to need you to slow down, okay? How have you killed your daughter? I beat her up. It wasn't my intention to kill her, but I beat her up too much. What is your name? My name is Irfan Sharif. Can you spell that for me? It's U for umbrella. Mm-hmm. R for Romeo. Yep. A for Friday, A for Alpha, and for November. Sorry, you are? F-A-N. Okay, second name, please. Sharif, F for Sugar, H for Hotel, A for Alpha, R for Romeo, I for Indigo, F for Freddy. Brilliant. Can I get your date of birth? I'm still here. I'm just writing all of this down. Can you tell the one my daughter even? Yes. Yes, don't worry. Nothing's going to be slowed down, okay? What is your... Okay. Okay. I need you to slow down, okay? What is your daughter's name? Sara Sharif. Okay, I need you to slow down. Okay, how do you spell your daughter's name? S-A-R-A. S-A-R-A? Yeah. Yep. Oh. And Sharif, her name? S-H-A-R-I-F. Okay, what's her date of birth? 10 years old. Like 2000 and what? 13. Okay, what happened? What led to this all happening? I think she was naughty over the last 3-4 weeks, and I was giving her punishment that she to sort her out. Yes, I did something and she died. Was she breathing when you left? No, she was that. I tried to resuscitate her, tried to give her CPR, everything, but I failed. I left in panic. Okay. Was she bleeding anywhere? No. Okay. She's bad, I'm telling you.
What injuries did she sustain? How long ago was this? How long? When did this happen? I need you to listen to me, okay? When did this happen?
About 36 hours ago.
This happened 36 hours ago?
Yes. I'm going to
Where are you right now?
I'm not alone. I'm going to come back.
So you're driving right now?
I'm driving. I'll come back.
Okay, what is your registration number?
Oh, I left that at Heathrow car park. Terminal 3 on the top floor.
Sorry, what was that?
My car is at Terminal 3 short.
Sorry, what car are you in right now? If you're not driving your car?
I'm in someone else's car. Please, I'll come back. Would you please send someone there?
No, don't worry. We are already deployed. This is not slowing any of this down, okay? Whose car are you in?
Someone else's car.
Whose car are you in, though?
It's someone else's car. Please, I'll
Okay,
smile.
is anyone else at the home with your daughter?
No one's at home. It's just me. No one is at home.
Okay. You know
Please.
Yeah, don't worry. We're already sending officers on the way. Okay. So where are you? I know you said you're driving, but can you see a road? Where are you right now?
I cannot give more details. I promise I'll come back. I'll take the distance.
I need to know where you are. Okay? Give me a landmark. Give me anything. Where are you? Do you know what town you're in?
I don't know.
Okay?
When police arrived at the residence, what they found was beyond shocking. In an upstairs bedroom, there was a fan, which was switched on, pointing at the bottom bunk with a perfectly placed sheet on top of a human figure. The police officer stated, quote, "I pulled back the cover and underneath was the body of a 10-year-old girl. She was lying on the bed, on her back, with her arms by her side, her legs together." Unquote. Under her pillow was a note. On the first page, in all caps, it said, "Love you, Sara." And the extracts of the second and third page went something like this. Quote, "Whoever sees this note, it's me, Irfan Sharif, who killed my daughter by beating. I am running away because I am scared, but I promise that I will hand over myself and take punishment. I swear to God that my intention was not to kill her, but I had lost it. My daughter is Muslim. Can you bury her like Muslim? Maybe I will be back before you finish the post-mortem." Unquote. This was no accident. Sara's small frame bore the marks of her suffering. The post-mortem would later reveal 71 separate injuries. Her body had bruises, abrasions, and marks of what seemed like a history of relentless abuse. But where were the people who were supposed to protect her? We know that Sara at the time was living with her father, Irfan Sharif, and his partner, Binish Batul, and she was also living with Faisal Malik, who was Irfan's brother. Although she was one of 6 children, unfortunately, she was the only one who suffered at the hands of Irfan and Binish. When teachers at her school showed concern, Sara would be sent to school wearing her hijab, which is a head covering, or she'll be sent to school with makeups to conceal the bruises. But when the school kept probing, Sara would be taken out of school, stating that she would be homeschooled. Justice Kavanagh described the abuse as torture before turning his attention to the decision of Irfan removing his daughter from school after teachers raised safeguarding concerns. He stated, quote, "The pretext of homeschooling was simply a ruse adopted for wholly selfish purposes to cover up the abuse to which Sara was subject and to continue with the abuse beyond the gaze of the authorities." Unquote. So in the previous episode, we ended it with Sara being taken out of school again and being homeschooled. So right before she withdrew from school in April 2023, Sara's school made a referral to social services. A report was entered into the school's child protection monitoring system on 10th March 2023. Yet, shockingly or maybe not, 6 days after receiving this referral, Surrey County Council closed the investigation. While the council and the police confirmed that they had contact with the family, the police described their interactions as limited and historic. What does that even mean? What does it mean that the interaction was limited and historic? It's absolutely horrific to face the fact that if social services and the police had actually done their job, Sara would have been saved. Her end would not have turned out this way. And we did touch upon how neighbors notice things. On one such occasion, there was a neighbor, Miss Redwin. She would hear sounds of smacking, which she said was shockingly loud, and it would be followed by gut-wrenching screams of a young female child. Over the screaming, she would hear the stepmother Bina shout, "Shut up!" and sometimes the sounds of further smacking would be heard, followed by the shouting. Other times, she would hear high-pitched screams that lasted a couple of seconds. Yet, Miss Redwin never thought to report what she heard. In fact, despite everything she heard, she didn't take any action against it. Between 2020 to 2023, we know that Beenish would message Kandila. So I found a few more extracts, which I'm going to share. So Beenish described Irfan in the message to her sister Kandila, saying that he was going on a rampage after spilling hot tea, saying he was possessed. She described an anger attack after a visit to a play center and an incident in which Irfan broke photo frames and curtains. So it seems like he just gets into this rage, anything can trigger it, and then he just picks up anything and hits whatever's in plain sight. And unfortunately, it was always Sara at the receiving end. Beenish then sends 10 photographs of Sara's bruises with the message, quote, "Look what he's doing. Delete the pictures." Unquote. Delete the pictures, Beenish? Okay. She wants no evidence if this ever did come out. It's sick. Beenish then stated in the messages that Sara had cut her father's clothes for being mean, and Irfan was punishing her by making her stay up all night doing sit-ups. She told Kandila that Sara had a demon in her and that she reminded her of herself when she was young. And this is so strange. So a child who is basically a punching bag for Irfan and Beenish's temper tantrums is being called a demon, kind of justifying that all these beatings are warranted because look at her behavior. She's acting like a devil. But in the same breath, Beenish also says that Sara reminds her of her younger self. It's just such a conflicting statement. Beenish has issues as well, clearly. On another occasion, Beenish said Irfan went ballistic and beat Sara up like crazy, expressing fear that he would break her arm or leg. After Beenish had gone to bed, she said Irfan was in the other room, making Sara put her hands up. Beenish would send messages stating that Sara was naughty or rude and rebellious, and that's why Irfan would beat the shit out of her. When Beenish would mention reporting Irfan to the police, Kandila would ask her to listen to the Quran and calm down. Listen to the Quran and calm down. Your sister is telling you that her husband is beating this child all the time. There are pictures and videos to prove it. You've seen the bruises. She's saying she's scared he's gonna break her arm or her leg. And your response to that as an adult is calm down, don't go report it, just hear the Quran, calm your nerves, it'll pass. Like, God. Kandila is I don't know why Kandila was not put up on stand and also punished, but it's just the mental, physical, emotional abuse Sara is undergoing. I just cannot understand how this 10-year-old still went to school happy, still was smiling, still was positive. It's really something. It really speaks volumes about Sara being so young and having to endure so much and yet smiling. Then Binish would send photographs to Kandila and write, "This is how bad he's beating her," or "I really feel sorry for her," or "He beat the crap out of her again." In another exchange of conversation from Binish, she writes to Kandila saying, quote, "Not great in our house. It's all a bit manic. Urfan beat the crap out of Sara and my mind is in all bits. I really want to report him. She's covered in bruises, literally beaten black." And then she goes on to say, quote, "Afterwards, Urfan sat on his fat bum and played the board game Ludo. Why the hell am I even letting him in the house?" By 2022, Binish was planning on taking legal advice, but Kandila asked her to give it time and not rush it. And the justification of why Urfan was beating Sara up the way he was because she had bad behavior. So if she answered back or if she didn't do as Urfan wanted her to do or what Binish wanted her to do, he would just use that as a reason to beat her. Binish has also mentioned that Urfan would be fine and then something would trigger him about what Sara said or what Sara did or how Sara spoke to him, and then he would wake her from her sleep to beat the shit out of her. By the time it became closer to Sara's death, the messages that Binish would send Kandila, it kind of showed that Sara basically, she had completely given up. The beatings and the abuse she was going through, her body was physically reacting to it. And it's just so sad. So Binish, she shared that Sara was vomiting and that she could not breathe. This was the time when they removed her from school. Binish is complaining to her sister, quote, "It's not hard homeschooling. I'm just fed up of her behavior and Urfan's behavior. Sara's body is literally bruised because Urfan beat her up. I cannot even cover it up. He beat Sara up yesterday. She ripped Urfan's documents in front of him and was being rude and rebellious. She got way too much bruises and stuff," unquote. In another message, she states, quote, "If something happens to Sara, I will not be able to forgive myself," unquote. 2 months before Sara's death, Binish told her sister, quote, "Urfan beat the crap out of her. Yeah, he beat her like crazy. Her oxygen level dropped really low. She's finding it hard to stay awake," unquote. On June 22nd, 2023, Batul messaged, quote, "Having a bad day with Sara. Just cleaned her up. She pooed herself," unquote. So what exactly happened to Sara? Hearing about these messages, and I'm hearing that the beatings are becoming even more frequent, becoming an everyday thing. It's become a part of Sara's routine. And now her body is slowly giving up to a point that she's vomiting, she's pooing herself. What are they doing to her? What is Urfan doing to her? So on August 8th, 2023, Sara was very unwell. She was vomiting, she was breathing rapidly. Worried at seeing Sara this way, Binish calls up Urfan. And she explained to Urfan, "This is what's happening with Sara, so you need to come home." And Urfan thought, Sara, she's just acting. She's trying to gain attention. She's trying to gain sympathy. But he said, "Okay, you know what? I'll come home." He got in his car. He started to drive towards his home, but he found no reason to rush. Like Binish is telling him, she's breathing very rapidly. There's something wrong. She's vomiting. She's not herself. She's, frail. She's limpy. Like, you need to come home. Something is happening. And he's just like, yeah, okay, let me just stop at a vape shop and get that done before I go home. No rush at all. So he arrives home. He finds Sara floppy in Binish's arms. And just imagine this. Sara is frail. She's weak. she's malnourished, she's covered in bruises caused by you. And instead of saying, oh my God, we need to rush her to the hospital, something is going to happen to my daughter, you turn around and you go like, she's pretending. She's pretending. She's faking it. So, not surprisingly, because this man is an absolute piece of crap, he didn't bother calling 999. He didn't bother seeking medical help. Instead, trigger warning, he picks up a metal pole and he beats Sara aggressively, focusing on her stomach area, her abdomen. So he's beating her up with this metal pole. A little while later, Sara, she just stopped breathing. And in one of the articles, the neighbor said that she actually heard Sara screaming. She's like, that scream, it was a sort of scream where you knew the person is in excruciating pain. But then she said it stopped. She did nothing about it. Didn't think to call 999, didn't think to go and check. So in the dead of the night, as their daughter lay lifeless in their home, Urfan, Beenish, and Urfan's brother Faisal decided, okay, it's time now to run. Within less than an hour of Sara's death, they were on the phone to a travel agent to arrange for tickets to Pakistan for their whole family. The jury played extracts from the call that Beenish made to the travel agent. And remember, this is like within the hour of Sara being killed. And Beenish can be heard speaking very coolly, very calmly, as if she has no care in the world. And Urfan at the back can be heard urging her to book an earlier flight. Again, this is within minutes of murdering their daughter, Sara. The other children can be heard in the background. So their first attempt to book flights was unsuccessful. And then a second booking had to be made using Faisal Malik's credit card. Then they took the calculated steps to cover up what they had done. So Sara's body was washed, she was put in clean clothes, and she was placed in the bunk bed in the upstairs bedroom. The leggings Sara had worn, the soiled nappy, the masking tape, and homemade hoods were put in the bins outside the house. The metal pole was hidden away in an outbuilding. We know that Faisal Malik was involved in this because he used to work at McDonald's. So his McDonald's uniform was found partly next to the bin with all the other items. And part of the uniform was soaking wet. And we know that they cleaned Sara's body. Urfan also removed the Ring doorbell to hide any video evidence. And then Urfan left a note under Sara's pillow. During all of this, she started searching online for legal differences between murder and manslaughter. And later on in his testimony, Urfan said, quote, she's very good at Googling stuff, unquote. So the following morning, which is 9th August 2023, Urfan, Beenish, Faisal, and the remaining 5 children, they drove to Heathrow Airport. On the way, they stopped so that Beenish and Urfan could withdraw substantial sums of money. And then they flew to Pakistan. They left Sara in the house, all alone, with a fan on, with a note. Such people become parents. Upon their arrival at Islamabad, Urfan rang Surrey police. And that's the call that you heard in the beginning of the episode. It was an 8-minute call. He told the police dispatcher that he had killed his daughter, and he said that her body could be found at the house in Horsell. He said, quote, I did legally punish my daughter and she died, unquote. Even then, he was trying to minimize what he had done, and he said that he intended to hand himself in, but he did not tell the police dispatcher where he was. He deliberately gave the impression that he was in the UK, and the dispatcher keeps saying, where are you? What car is it? They have no clue that this call is coming from Islamabad. And then they all went into hiding in Pakistan. There is no extradition treaty between the UK and Pakistan. Nonetheless, the Pakistani authorities, they started looking for Beenish, Urfan, and Faisal. On 6 September, Beenish Batul and Urfan Sharif, they took part in a bizarre video press statement in which they very briefly referred to Sara's death, saying that it was just an accident. But the rest of the time, they were complaining about the pressure that the Pakistani authorities were putting on Urfan's family and how this is so unjust and just we're the victims. And then finally, on 13 September 2023, the 3 of them flew back to the UK, although it was not voluntary because Irfan Sharif's family, they were like, we are done. We are not keeping you in hiding. We have no idea what you've done to Sara. We have nothing to do with you. Back up, get out. We're done with you. And that is why they had to come back to the UK. So they returned to the UK on the 13th and they were arrested. In fact, there's also a video which I will put up on Instagram where the minute the flight lands in UK, the police can be seen entering the airplane. They catch Irfan, Beenish and Faisal, and they handcuff them and escort them out of the airport. So all three of them were charged with Sara's murder. Sara, who was only 10 years old. And now we're going to talk about the post-mortem, and this is the most horrifying part of this case, which you're like, what, Jihan? Everything you have said so far is horrific. What do you mean? But when you hear about what Irfan and Beenish did to Sara, I just cannot believe that this young girl, for most of her life, had to go through this. And I just need to give a major, major, major trigger warning. So the post-mortem evidence revealed the extent of her suffering. At the time of her death, Sara bore at least 71 fresh injuries across her body. Again, we know that these are bruises and abrasions that were all over her head, her face, her chest, her abdomen, her arms, and her legs. And these injuries had been inflicted in the days leading up to her death. But that was not all. Dr. Carey, the pathologist, found traces of older injuries, which were not included in the 71. And that is why she turned on and said that this was a prolonged history of violence. So the 71 injuries were the fresh ones. There were multiple old injuries as well. Sara had not only been beaten, but she was restrained. There were marks on her body that suggested she had been tied up. Many of her wounds bore tram-line markings, which is a telltale sign of beatings with an elongated object. And Irfan Sharif later admitted to striking Sara repeatedly with a metal pole. Remember the metal pole? From a high chair, an object which they did find at the crime scene. He also confessed to using a cricket bat, which that too was recovered from the house and it had blood stains on it. So she was restrained. She was beaten with the metal pole. She was beaten with the cricket bat. She was also tied up with a skipping rope too. Every single day, Sara endured these beatings multiple times a day. And Irfan also admitted to striking her on the head with a mobile phone. Medical experts discovered 25 separate fractures in Sara's body. There was her collarbone was fractured, shoulder blades, both of them were fractured. She had 11 separate fractures along her spinal column. Both her hands were fractured. She had a fractured humerus, and all of these injuries were described as highly unusual in a child. They exceeded the severity of sporting injuries and were even more extensive than what would typically be seen in severe road traffic accidents. They're like, these are not injuries even someone gets from, if you were in a road accident, you wouldn't even have such fractures. Can you just pause and let that sink in? How badly was she beaten? How much force was she beaten with? It's insane. I cannot seem to just make that click. I'm just my mind is just I just can't. I just cannot understand how someone can be that cruel to their own child. So these fractures, they required immense force and multiple episodes of violence. Their date revealed a timeline spanning 2 to 8 weeks before Sara's death. And obviously, this was not an isolated act of brutality. This was systematic torture. Among the findings, Sara had a fracture in her neck. So that was a strong indication of manual strangulation. And quite possibly, it wasn't just once. And we know that strangulation is an act of prolonged cruelty. It's one that takes time and effort. So to think about how Irfan is holding this 10-year-old's neck and pressing it enough to cause her to stop breathing, but not even that much so that she dies. It's just sick. It's just sick. And she's really small, right? So he must have lifted her up every time he strangled her, looked her in her eyes, saw her eyes roll back, saw her choking, gasping for air, and she stand, and it was multiple times. In the days before her death, Sara also suffered a serious brain injury due to a forceful blow on her head. We know that he used a cricket bat, he used a metal pole. You're probably like, Jihan, wow, okay, this must be it, right? Like, this is it? No. No, guys, this isn't it. Because the cruelty extended beyond beatings. Sara's post-mortem uncovered two open burn wounds on her buttock. So on her bum, the burn mark matched the shape of an iron sole plate. Iron, what you iron your clothes with, that instrument that straightens your clothes. There were two of those, that shape, on both of her butt cheeks. These burns were not accidental, which, what? Why would they be accidental? It was uncovered that Sara's body had been forcibly pressed against the burning metal. It was a deliberate act of punishment. And given the force needed, at least two people would have been involved. So one person would have been restraining Sara, and the other would be pressing the hot iron against her butt cheek. So when you then think about how, Binish would say that he beat the shit out of her, he beat the shit out of her, you have no idea, she's covered in bruises. In one message, she said, these are just bruises from the top. I haven't even shown you bruises under her clothes. And then you're saying, he's horrible, he's this, I'm gonna report him, I should do this, I should do that, he needs to learn. What the hell, Binish? You are actively participating in giving this child torture. You are as much to blame. And also in the previous episode, she would even egg Irfan on, like she would get him riled up against Sara when she was irritated by Sara. So this poor 10-year-old child who's being restrained, beaten, strangled, hit on the head, also was burned using an iron. Burn expert Dr. Martin testified that these wounds were sustained at least 2 weeks, possibly up to 6 weeks before her death. They would have caused agonizing pain. And yet no one treated them. No one sought medical help, and Sara was left to suffer with an injury that even if she had survived, it would have left her permanently disfigured. The postmortem also showed that Sara had 6 bite marks on her body. 5 of them were on her left arm, and 1 was on the inside of her thigh. The marks were made by an adult. Irfan Sharif, Faisal Malik, and Sara's older brother each provided teeth impressions, and each was excluded from being responsible for the tooth marks. Binish Batul declined to give a tooth impression. So again, this woman makes zero sense to me. You're messaging your sister, kind of showing that you're too a victim of this crazy man, and I feel so sorry for this girl, but you're aiding in the abuse. You are actively participating in it. You bit her 6 times all over her body, her small body. What is wrong with you? You're disgusting. You're as bad as Irfan. You're disgusting. And you know what? My mind right now is like, this is so much. This is so much. And I'm not even done. Guys, I'm not even done. Further burn wounds were found on the insides of Sara's ankles. The only plausible explanation was that her ankles had been tied, so we know that she was restrained. But her ankles had been tied, and either boiling water was poured over them, or she was tied against a hot pipe. And I just want to paint this picture for you. So think of this 10-year-old girl, okay? She's beaten up. Again, cricket bat, metal pole, whatever he sees around him in that fit of rage, he hits her with it, hits her head using it. And then when he's not beating her up or he's not choking her, he has tied her hands. He's tied her feet to a hot pipe, or he's tied her up and then pouring boiling water over her ankles she's being bitten, her she's being burnt, and while in that position, remember I had mentioned about homemade hoods? The skipping rope was used to tie her hands and feet. There was masking tape to secure the skipping rope. And then a plastic bag was put on top of her head and it was secured with a masking tape. A hole was ripped for her to breathe near the nose. God, I'm so sorry, guys. I was supposed to put this episode out last week. I have been running from narrating it because it's so difficult to put it out there and be like, this actually happened to a young girl for a whole life. And when she went to school, she got a break from it. But after April 2023 till August 8th, when they killed her, for 5 months she went through this non-stop. It was her daily routine. So if she wasn't being beaten up, if she wasn't being burned, she was then restrained, head covered 24/7, burnt. It's just too much. It's too much. It's just too much. It's too much. When, police arrived at the house and they searched the area around, they found all of this. The plastic bags, they found the rope, they found the tape, they found all of it. And Sarah's DNA and hair were found on the masking tape and inside of the hood. So that kind of confirmed that they actually would cover her. And then to further prove that this was not just a one-time thing or it wasn't just something that you're speculating about, Benish's Amazon record showed that she had ordered 18 rolls of parcel tape in 2 separate online orders. So this was done very calculatively, knowing, planning it, that this is the torture, this is what we're going to do to her, and we are going to buy stuff for it. So Jess, this treatment of a 10-year-old, the terrors she endured is unfathomable. And it just breaks your heart, like, anyway, but then to think about the fact that it was inflicted by the people who were meant to protect her, you just lose all hope. You lose all hope in humanity. And it gets worse. It gets worse. We know that Sarah had come to a point where she was vomiting. Oh my God, she was vomiting. Imagine if she was hooded and she was vomiting and then they probably didn't change her. They probably left her like that for hours. And she was just in her own vomit. Towards the end of Sarah's life, we know that Binish had messaged Kandila saying, Sarah pooed herself. I just cleaned her. Now, think of all those messages and think of how Sarah was being kept in her house by these monsters. Those messages now are like, not making sense. But when the police examined the bins around the house, they found a soiled nappy wrapped around Sarah's leggings. While she was restrained, she wasn't allowed to go to the bathroom. So Irfan and Binish, they forced her into pull-up nappies. So Dr. Martin confirmed that Sarah's ankle injuries had worsened due to prolonged exposure to urine and feces. So from the nappy, the amount of poop and pee that accumulated, which they did not clean, would eventually would spill out of the nappy, would obviously, while sliding down her thigh and her leg, end up near her ankle. But he also said that this also indicated that the restraints were so tight that her feet and ankles were pulled up against her bottom. And the medical evidence also revealed that at the time of her death, Sarah was underweight and she was undernourished. Dr. Carey, the pathologist, she described the cause of Sarah's death as complications arising from multiple injuries and neglect. It was not a single isolated injury, but the cumulative effect of ongoing torture that ultimately ended her life. During the trial, the jury was shown a video of Sarah dancing in front of the TV a few days before she died, and it is clearly evident in the video that her mobility was impaired. But despite everything, she smiled at the camera. And just to emphasize how much love Sarah had within her, she had written a short story in which she described Binish Batul as a queen who is beautiful and young. And then she had also written her father a birthday card in which she said, "Happy birthday, Dad. I love you so much." They also found a letter that she wrote to Irfan and Binish in which she apologized for answering back and said, quote, "Please forgive me. I am so sorry." Asking forgiveness from the same people who abuse, torture, harm you on a daily basis. The reality was that the abuse, which for anyone else would have been exceptional, had become normal for Sara. She had known nothing else for much of her life. Irfan Sharif and Binish Batul had persuaded her that she deserved the treatment. So sick, guys. Other details emerged from court testimonies. Irfan Sharif claimed that on the evening of August 8, 2023, so this is his story now, he came home to find Binish Batul holding Sara, who appeared lifeless. Binish allegedly told Irfan that Sara had fallen down the stairs while playing and was pretending to be hurt, which is all bullshit because we know she was restrained, she was tied up, she was hooded. Bullshit. Irfan recounted, quote, I told Sara to get up and took her arm, but it was limp. Then I took Sara from Binish's lap. Sara whispered and opened her mouth a bit, saying she was thirsty and needed water. Unquote. She was lying lifeless, but suddenly when you took her, she opened her eyes and whispered, I need water. You're a liar, Irfan, and you're shameless, and I cannot believe you're a father. He goes on to say that despite his attempts to revive Sara through CPR, Beanish was discouraging him from calling an ambulance, stating, quote, it's no point, there's no need because she's dead. Prosecutor Bill Jones presented evidence that included a blood-stained cricket bat, a rolling pin with Sara's DNA, a rolling pin, what you use to make roti. So a rolling pin with Sara's DNA, a metal pole, a belt, and rope found near the family's outhouse. The objects were linked to the prolonged abuse Sara endured. On 11th December 2024, Irfan Sharif and Batul were found guilty of murdering Sara. Faisal Malik was found not guilty of murder, but was found guilty of causing or allowing the death of a child. Because damn you, Faisal Malik, you sat there silent and complicit in everything that was happening. Sick. There were three adults, and none of them thought this is wrong. None of them could save Sara. On 17th December 2024, all three were sentenced. Irfan Sharif, convicted of the murder of Sara Sharif, was sentenced to life imprisonment. Considering all relevant circumstances as well as aggravating and mitigating factors, he was given minimum term of 40 years, reduced by the time he had already served on remand, leaving him with 38 years and 272 days to serve, which is not enough. He should, be executed, to be honest. Binish Batul, also convicted of Sara's murder, was sentenced to life imprisonment. Taking into account all relevant factors, she received a minimum term of 33 years, reduced by time spent on remand, meaning she will serve 31 years and 272 days. Again, not enough. Faisal Malik, found guilty of causing or allowing Sara's death, was sentenced to 16 years in prison, with time served on remand deducted. He will be required to serve up 2/3 of his sentence in custody, with the remainder on license. Should he violate the terms of his license or commit another offense, he risks being recalled to serve the rest of his sentence behind bars. So great, he spent 16 years and then he's out free. And if he sees anything wrong happening again or abuse happening to this level again, and he'll just stay silent, just like he used to, because what the hell is he going to learn from just 16 years of imprisonment? Just don't understand. I don't really agree to this verdict, but what do I know? In her victim impact statement, Sara's mother, Olga, expressed her grief and outrage. Quote, to this day, I can't understand how someone can be such a sadist to a child. You are sadistic, although even this word is not enough for you. I would say you are executioners. On the 3rd of January 2025, last month, while in prison, Irfan Sharif was reportedly ambushed by 2 inmates who attacked him with a sharpened tuna canlet, slitting his throat. He unfortunately survived, and reports confirmed that they were not life-threatening, which is quite sad. But I've heard this a lot with the prisons abroad in the UK and US, where there's like this code that you do not hurt children. So anyone who has raped a child or has harmed a child or tortured a child, the prisoners will make sure they deal with him. So I hope there's another attempt, and this time they're successful, because Irfan Sharif does not deserve to be cutting his life just in prison. I don't think that's enough. The judges who kept sending Sara back to Irfan to live with Irfan, who failed to protect Sara have finally been identified. Judges Alison Rayside, Peter Nathan, and Sally Williams were involved in proceedings related to Sara's case between 2013 and 2019. Judge Rayside, who is still serving, presided over most of the hearings concerning Sara. They allowed and enabled the suffering Sara endured. It's an unforgivable failure. So we're naming and shaming them. Do what you will with that. Today, in Sara's school playground, a polka dot bench stands in her memory. A plaque reads, quote, Sara's buddy bench, unquote. Her head teacher described her as such a special little girl. I don't think I've ever known such sadness. Paying tribute to her daughter, Olga said, quote, My dear Sara, I ask God to please take care of my little girl. She was taken too soon. Sara had beautiful brown eyes and an angelic voice. Sara's smile could brighten up the darkest room. Everyone who knew Sara will know her unique character, her beautiful smile, and loud laugh. She will always be in our hearts. Her laughter will bring warmth to our lives. We miss Sara very much. Love you, Princess. Unquote. Sara Sharif was a 10-year-old who should have been cherished, loved, and protected. But instead, she endured unimaginable torture, abuse, and was ultimately beaten to death. While justice has been served in the courts, it does little to erase the horrific suffering that Sara experienced. The system failed her. Those who should have protected her, the police, social services, the judges, neighbors, even those within the home, even her mother, the teachers, the headmaster, the school admin, everyone failed her. Sara Sharif's story is one of heartbreaking loss, and it's a stark reminder of our collective responsibility to protect the most vulnerable among us, one of the most vulnerable among us. It serves as a call for a world where no child's cries go unheard and where no one is left to suffer in silence. And with that, thank you for joining me in remembering Sara Sharif on this episode of Crime Stories of Pakistan. Again, special thanks to Ibrar for suggesting this powerful case. Powerful, heartbreaking, gut-wrenching, keeps you up in the night thinking about it case. But until next time, stay safe, stay vigilant, and keep listening to the horrific cases we uncover on Crime Stories of Pakistan with your hosts, Naz and Jehan. Bye, guys.